Hi, we're Vicky Grubb and Ray Clarke, and we're upholsterers based in the UK and the team behind the Sit on This podcast. Welcome to our very first podcast video.
Sit on This is about celebrating craftsmanship, creativity, and all the wonderful stories, tools, tips, and tricks of the trade that go into possibly the very object you're sitting on watching this. In our first episode, we'd like to take you behind the scenes to one of the oldest manufacturers of scissors still remaining in the UK, Whiteley and Sons.
So hit subscribe and join us as we dive into the fascinating world of Whiteley and Sons.
Sit on this.
From some of our previous podcasts, you may remember that Ray is absolutely obsessed with the tools of the trade.
Totally. Come on.
We thought we cannot do a first season of the Sit on This podcast without honing in on a few special tools of the trade, the things that keep us upholsterers doing the best work we can.
Yeah. And so today, ladies and gentlemen, we've got a very special podcast for you, brought from the founding factory of scissor craft in the UK, William Whiteley and Sons in Sheffield, England.
Yes.
And across from us, we have Jade.
Hello.
Jade, thank you for joining us on the Sit on This podcast. This is amazing.
It's great to be here.
Yeah.
So is it true that Whiteley's is the oldest scissor manufacturer in the world?
So not quite the oldest in the world, but we are the oldest in the Western world. There is one company in China that is just pipped us to the post of the oldest one in the world. But we have been going since 1760 and likely a while before that too, just in documentation. We've only got it up to 1760. So it's likely that we are one of, if not the oldest, manufacturers still producing in Sheffield as well.
So scissors in themselves, when were they invented? Like, what's the history of scissors?
So blades obviously have a lot more history than scissors have because blades were the original things used to cut things. So fabric at one point will have been just cut with a blade or even cut with stones, obsidian, flint, things like that will have been sharpened to cut through fabrics, animal hides that they used for clothing. So after that point, when things started to progress, is when it went to the Egyptians. So the Egyptians are who...
Oh, steady on.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
designed this style of shear.
Jade's just showing us some sheep shearers. I mean, I don't know if they're actually called. What are they actually called?
The ones that we produced were for shearing sheep, but they would be called spring scissors or spring shears.
Yeah.
So the strip of material that's holding them blades together acts as a spring to bring them back apart as you are cutting. So they will have made it more out of materials such as iron or bronze, things like that.
Can you imagine cutting fabric with sheep shearing scissors?
I can imagine cutting a lot more than fabric. You know what I mean?
I might chop my hand off using those for fabric.
They
I'm
are
pretty sure.
very interesting shears, very interesting.
Yeah.
But then after that point, it was in around 100 CE that it was the Romans that invented the crossed over blade scissors that we use today. So the more standard style that you will have in your house or at work, those were designed by the Romans.
You brought an array of
Yes.
different styles here. I want to get into this a bit because I'm like fascinated. So I mean, these are
Describe
mammoths. These are like the first scissors.
Yes, but that style did stay in fashion, so to speak, like you said, for sheep shearing, things like that.
Yeah.
So they're not older than these ones, but they're the older style.
Okay.
So this pair is the oldest pair that we have in our internal archive.
So, I mean, Ray's picking up a humongous pair
Huge,
of
man.
steel
I mean, what is
scissors.
that?
What's the length of that blade? That must
They've
be
got to be 16 inch.
16 inch at least.
60 inch, yeah. And you know, just to lift these from a female point of view, and the fact that my hands are very small.
From anyone who
I had a
small
little
hands.
go at trying to cut with them earlier, and they are so heavy and so enormous.
They've
But
got to
would
be at
these-
least 3 kilo.
Would these have been used for, like, you know, tailors? What would they have been used for?
Yeah, so
Yeah, because they've got this. They come to a point, don't they? Both
yes.
ends.
So there's different styles of scissors depending on preference, but also the work in hand. So scissors in that style will have been used for fabrics. So primarily tailors would have used them because, like you said, they are very heavy, very large. And at the time, dressmakers, predominantly women, tailors are predominantly men. So it'd probably be more towards tailoring than any other profession. But they are from 1830.
I notice on the table, though, you've got a really lovely, delicate pair of scissors there, and they've got Victoria written on them, which is my name. So were they made for
I'm
me?
going to grab him.
It was in fact made for Queen Victoria, and they were presented to her in 1838.
Wow. And so how come you've got them, though, that, you know, if they were made for the Queen, like why they're not in the royal collection?
So after she passed away, a lot of her belongings went to museums and things like that for people to go and see, people to experience the life as Queen Victoria kind of thing. So once they'd been in storage for quite some time and no longer on display, they did work their way back to us on a very nice velvet cushion.
This cushion.
Another velvet cushion underneath that. They were placed on top of a lovely cushion, held in hand and delivered to us.
A footman
basically, yeah. So we now have them within our archive, which is wonderful, but you really can see the craftsmanship in them.
Absolutely. They've got a crest on them and obviously her name. Yes. And what would these be used for? Because they look like paper scissors to me. I mean, are they
probably paper bits and pieces, small things? I guess you could use them for threads, but in all honesty, I suspect they won't have been used very much and more so just sat there just to look absolutely stunning on a desk or something like that.
Essential item.
Yes, very essential item.
The style of the blades is really unique as well. Yeah. It's kind of like a diamond.
Yeah, and that'll have all been shaped by hand. There won't have been any dyes, any lasers, anything that we'd probably use in today's age. Didn't exist back then. Not even the lighting that we've got in today's age.
Wait,
so
wouldn't these been like forged in some way?
Not in that shape. So they will have been bent and shaped by hand.
Are scissors made the same way that they were made 200 years ago, or have processes changed?
Processes have evolved, but in a nutshell, they are very similar to the way that they were. So we still grind the inside, grind the edges, although like I mentioned earlier, before it was water powered with large grinding stones. Now it's the grinding machines that you saw downstairs.
Because you used to be based at a watermill, didn't you?
Yes.
The historic building was a watermill.
Exactly. So so the water-powered machinery were obviously absolutely huge, but something that didn't travel into the 21st century.
Yeah.
We don't do that. Not very many places. There might be a few museums where you can see it running, but we wouldn't be able to carry on going if we carried on with water power. Yeah. So obviously we've moved forward from there. A few of our processes have evolved in that same way. So the hardening furnace that we run to harden the steel, that's now on gas and electricity rather than coal. So like things have evolved in a sense.
That's why coming up to Sheffield, we noticed these really big cylindrical. What were they?
I don't know. I think aren't they modern? Those?
No, they're like. They're like, I don't know, they were like old chimneys. Cylindrical chimneys you just don't see in London. Or
no, you don't, Nia. But yeah, of course, like eventually we've had to bring things a little bit more up to date. But what we can keep in its authentic way of doing it, we've tried our best to. The guys on the shop floor still use hammers to curve the blades. A lot of it's done by hand and by memory.
Like blades there's a gap.
Yes.
You can't really pick this up on camera, but there's a gap, a really narrow gap between the blades.
And that gap is because the blades are slightly curved, and that's so. At any one point, there's only one part of the blades touching. There's not many things from the 1830s, early 1800s that you could pick up today and confidently still cut a suit with them, because somebody really could make something beautiful using these tools. they're a lifetime tool.
Yeah. And they're every bit as valuable a piece of kit in an upholsterer's toolkit or workshop as a cabriole hammer or webbing stretcher or set of needles. I mean, a good pair of shears, it's a joy.
It's really important.
It's a joy to cut fabric.
Yeah.
When you've got a good pair of shears around you, you know what I mean?
What I found really interesting was that the older scissors and the new tailor's scissors are made with, they've got these kind of little extended metal parts in the centre where the scissors open, and that's so that they can lie onto the fabric. You can place them down and then go back to where you're working from.
Yeah. They stand, you can just walk up to it, put your hand straight in and carry on cutting, or you can stop mid-cut, put your scissors down and go and deal with whatever you need to deal with.
Yeah.
All right.
So what?
Just leave me there. Get mug above rule. Done.
Carry on.
I mean, not that I
exactly
can
what
pick
they're for.
those up because they are. What I wanted to know is that there are actually differences, aren't there, between different types of scissors?
Yes.
So for a tailor, there's a different type.
Yeah.
As to an upholsterer. So what can you describe what those differences are?
So these are tailors,
So yes, they're tailor's shears. So they're very large tailor's shears.
even though they've got different shaped blades.
Yes. So the one on your right,
yeah.
that one is a tailor board. So that bottom blade where it is dubbed at the end is so when they're running underneath fabric, so say they're using something really delicate like satin where you don't want to be snagging the fabric, that stops it from pulling. So it can slide straight underneath it without causing a problem, without digging into the desk. Whereas some people or some professions prefer the both sharp points. So we call this one a sharp blunt. That one's a sharp sharp. You can also get blunt blunts. So with those ones, you can really use that tip to get into corners.
Yeah.
It's not just for long runs.
Yeah.
So this is something I've really wanted to ask about, like the use of scissors and shears. The action of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is better, or is there not better or worse? Some people, depending on the blades and how sharp they are, they just establish a cut and run the fabric. Yeah. Other people just chop. And obviously, depending on what area of fabric you're trying to cut, and in an upholsterer, when they're cutting fabric or making shapes, they want a continuous cut. They don't want it necessarily to be UJ. What would you recommend? What is the...
I mean, it is completely personal preference, and neither one.
There is no right way.
No.
Okay.
There is no right way. If you want to run, obviously there's certain fabrics you can't run on because of the weft of the fabric. It will not allow you to.
No. No matter how sharp.
No matter how sharp.
What shape
it just won't do it. So that is completely up to you. It's not going to ruin your scissors if you do like running. It just may be that when it comes to requiring that resharpen, that it's on a singular point compared to the full blade, where if you were going up and down.
One thing I've always heard and always been told is, never cut paper with them. You're cutting fabric, don't cut paper. What's the...
So the main reason behind that is because the angles of the blades that, again, what you saw on the shop floor when they're putting them in that grinding machine, it's set to specific angles.
Right.
A paper scissor has a different angle to a fabric scissor. So when you're using fabric scissor angles with paper, you are taking off that extra sharp tip that you don't require for a paper scissor. So you're in turn blunting your fabric scissor. Right. Now, if you use it once to cut it, it's probably not going to be a problem.
But if it's continuous,
you'll need to resharpen them faster than if you were to use them for what they're made for.
So what are the different angles then? I didn't even know this.
So the different angles. So for upholstery, yours, I believe it's a 45-degree angle, which we call a knife edge. So those are, if you have a look at that bottom edge, they are really quite deep on the angle.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas I don't have one for you in front of me. That's just a classic blade. Yeah. But they're, I believe, 15 degrees. So they're a lot flatter, almost entirely flat when you look at them. It's hard to believe that they would still cut. But depending on what you're wanting to cut, your angle is extremely important, which changes your scissor from being able to cut thick, heavy-duty fabric to being able to cut carbon fibre to being able to cut paper. Each one has been tested over and over again until we found the perfect angle for it. So just don't switch between fabrics.
And is that
Or switch from fabric to paper.
Yeah.
is that something exclusive to Whiteley's, or is that what every scissor manufacturer does? Or
It's what we know we do.
yeah.
I mean, I'm sure other manufacturers have got their ways and means of doing things and their angles that they're chosen to.
Yeah.
In 264 years, that's what we have found to be the best angle, which I think is a hell of a lot of experience.
And I think what's really interesting about your scissors as well is that you have very special left-handed scissors.
Yes,
Yeah.
we
Because
do.
a lot of my students are constantly, can I get left-handed? And they've learned to cut with right hand, to be honest.
Yes. So left-handed scissors, I'm left-handed myself. So obviously working here and experiencing true left-handed scissors was a little bit of a shock, to be honest, because for a lot of companies, they keep the scissors themselves the exact same as the right-handed, but then mold the handles to fit a left hand, which means you are still training your hand to push and pull with your fingers to be able to cut with them the same way you would if you were to use a right-handed pair of scissors in your left hand. Whereas ours are true left-handed, they're the opposite way around, which will stop them from cutting if you push and pull with your fingers the same way you would a right-handed
The
one.
blades are completely the opposite.
Completely the opposite way around, which is how they should be.
Yeah.
But it's not how everybody else has manufactured them. So, of course, sometimes people will
people
come
just
to us and say, I can't make them cut.
Right. So how many complaints do you get about that? Because I'm just thinking if my mum is left-handed, I'm sure she has said those exact words to me in the past. Oh, I just cannot make these.
Can't make them cut.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a relatively big percentage compared to the amount of left-handed scissors we sell.
Yeah.
Obviously, the percentage of left-handed people across the world is quite small. So for them to actually be interested in purchasing a pair of left-handed scissors from us as well, we probably still get about a good 50% of people come back and say they're not cutting, I think they're broken.
Right.
But
And then you have to inform the customer and educate them a bit.
giving them that education. There's a video, kind of some text to read through that kind of explains how they work and why they're not cutting.
Yeah.
And once they get them working, we usually get an email saying, oh my God, best scissors ever. I understand them now. It's going to take a little bit for my brain, but I understand.
Person who restores furniture and upholsters furniture is known as an upholsterer. Person who sharpens scissors and shears is known as a cutler.
A cutler, a craftsman, a scissor maker. There's so many terms that you can call people within this craft because it spreads across multiple, I guess.
Disciplines.
Yeah. So it is cutlers, but it is also scissor making and it is also craftsmanship. There's plenty of skills that can be done across the board, knives and scissors that are very similar. So somebody who sharpens knives will likely know how to sharpen scissors because it's a blade. They understand the concept of it.
Ray and I have just actually done a tour around the factory today, and I think you're
around
talking
your factory
around
today.
Whiteley factory, and I think what struck me was that it is a craft. These are handcrafted scissors, and I think as crafters ourselves and people who use our hands, I think I guess people don't realise what goes into making a bracelet.
No. I mean, there's
just like sharpening with a stone.
Yeah.
No, quite, no.
And then there's not just that, the machines you've got down there that actually like assist the cutlers in actually producing this beautiful work.
Yeah.
They've got to be maintained and
exactly.
as well.
We do most things in-house. If we can do it in-house, the craftsmen downstairs are doing it. They're the ones changing the stones on the grinding machines. They're the ones, fixing the electric works of these old machines because they're things that no other company have got anymore because they're from I mean, the grinding machines are from, I think, the 70s or 80s. So they're obviously, in machinery terms, they're really quite old.
I'm all getting.
I know.
None of us are getting any younger.
They're not as old as you, right?
I'm just getting any younger.
But yeah, the craftsmen really do everything when it comes down to their role down there. They learn so many things that in most jobs you would call IT or the electrician, and somebody would know how to fix it, or they'd just upgrade the machine. You'd get a new one. But we want to keep things for as long as possible.
How have you, it seems to me that you've kept the heritage alive.
Yeah.
But you've in some sort of way resisted going down the route of complete automation and using like more modern techniques to produce the kind of craftsmanship that you do.
It's really important to us to keep the craftsmanship of scissor making alive because there is so little companies left. There's only 2 left in Sheffield, 2 left in the UK. So
seriously,
yeah. So just two. So for us
at one point there used to be
hundreds and dropped down to maybe 30 around the 80s, and slowly but surely it's wheedled down to just the 2 of us left. So for us to give up certain parts of our craft would be a shame. It really would be a shame, because although you can create some amazing stuff using modern technology, it is amazing, wonderful, great, and it has tied into certain parts of us in a sense, because our exo shears,
and the way you've engraved the
and the way we engrave things like that, we have used it to bring ourselves forward, but we still like to think that our scissors themselves, the core scissor, will always be handcrafted.
I mean, I was interested when I was looking at your website, and you had about 25 different pairs of upholstery scissors on that. And
wait, what? 25 different pairs of upholstery scissors.
And upholstery. So I just wondered, like, what the differences were, and like, are you getting a better scissor that's more expensive? What makes a scissor more expensive?
Okay, so when it comes to the pricing, a lot of things come into play with it. So it's the size of the scissor, the material used to make the scissor, the coatings that are on them. So obviously, as you've probably seen, that some of them are your standard chrome plate with a painted handle, but we even go to the sides of having things Xylan coated, some very beautiful coatings as well, like the gold ones, which is titanium nitride. So all of those things play a part within pricing of the scissor. Yeah. But we do very much pride ourselves on the fact that whether you buy the cheapest one or you buy the most expensive one, you will still get the same quality of cut. You will still get the highest quality shear you can possibly get for the job you are looking for. So obviously upholstery, and so forth. But when it comes down to them scissors, we do 8-inch, 10-inch, left-handed, right-handed. So there is so many variants. Yeah.
You've got a range of different sizes here. Is there like a maximum blade length and a minimum blade length that you would recommend for human beings who practice upholstery?
Well, for upholstery, I'd say anywhere between 8 and 12 inch. It is obviously dependent on personal preference. Obviously, there is a lot of weight to larger shears, like 12-inch shears are, I believe, nearly 2 kilograms. So obviously to be able to open and shut that for long periods of time can be quite difficult for many of us. It's nothing to do with gender or anything like that. No. It can just purely be you get fatigued far too fast. There's also health conditions that come into play.
Repetitive strain injury.
Yeah. I mean, with those, definitely with the old-fashioned.
They must have been very strong back in the day.
Yeah. But they eat so much processed food, but that's another conversation for me.
But the blades are slightly different, aren't they? With some of them have got like perforated.
Yes. So obviously we mentioned the angles earlier, but one thing that we didn't talk about was the serration. So for upholstery shears, we recommend 1 serrated blade, 1 knife edge. The serrated blade almost acts like a grip. So as you're cutting through your tougher fabrics, because most of yours will be a lot thicker than dressmakers, tailors, things like that, it holds onto that fabric while the knife edge slices through it, which makes it a lot easier, but also helps them tackle fabrics that many other scissors just won't tackle. They'll just fold the fabric. Yeah. So the serration is very important when it comes to upholstery. And your favourite shears? The glides.
I love those.
Yeah. I do have them ones with serration, which I'm sure you've noticed grips on nicely for you.
Yeah.
These ones are also lightweight. So like I mentioned before about the heaviness of 12-inch scissors, for some people, a lightweight scissor is more important. So there is a varying degree of reasons why you'd pick one scissor over the other.
And I have just purchased today, well, Ray has just purchased for me as a gift, because Ray loves buying me gifts. Tool gifts.
Tool gifts.
I have a lot of tool gifts from
Now
I've got my very own Workmasters. And now, before meeting Ray, I'd actually never heard of Workmasters.
I hadn't heard.
Many people haven't.
I have been in the industry quite a while, but I had just never heard of them.
Yeah.
And so what do Workmasters do?
Okay, anything.
Oh, yeah, Workmasters will cut a lot because of the longer handles. There's more leverage there to really get through those tough things. Workmasters will even cut sheet metal. They are tough cookies of scissors. They are one of Andy's favourite ones as well for that fact, because they are such a sturdy scissor that can be used for so many different things. They're a great all-rounder for most people to have within their toolbox.
So an upholsterer, when you're cutting fabric, would be good for the glides. But anything else, whether you're cutting laid cord, cutting lots of... Getting those awkward cuts in sometimes when you're cutting around a post or around a frame, and these are a bit too long and too ungainly.
So you would do that on like a leg, cutting the fabric around a leg.
You might want to. Want to. But I mean, like cutting laid cord, I've cut, sorry about this, I have to, it's like, I've cut laid cord, I've cut bamboo with this. I've cut steel wire, steel wire just through these, because they've got a serrated edge in there. Right?
So they'll also give you that grip. So it's holding on. It's not pushing things that are tougher out of the blade.
I mean, I've pushed mine to the limit though. And I've tried
we'll resharpen them for you.
I can't believe how many pairs. You've literally got 5 pairs, haven't you?
I'd never heard of these either until when I first started training at London Metropolitan University. This is way back in 2003, 2004. The course leader at the time, a certain Malcolm Hopkins, recommended every student had a pair of these in their toolkit.
Wow.
And we had, these are Zylon coated now.
Yes.
But the ones I had were Teflon coated, which is similar to Zylon, but
same properties,
but you can explain why they called that. But anyway, I had mine for years. I was amazed. Beforehand, I'd only ever come across paper cutting scissors and things like this, and just I didn't realise how integral a part of a toolkit, an upholsterer's toolkit, having a pair of these were. And then since then, I've gone through about, I know they do last a long time. A long time. And I've given them a lot of abuse. Do you know what I mean? And they've lasted a long time. But I've now got maybe 4 or 5 pairs of these.
Wow.
Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the silk, some of the not the. I've got a couple of I've got 1 Teflon, 1 Zylon, and about 2 or 3 pairs of this just silver,
the chrome plate
ones. The chrome plated ones.
Yeah.
And they're amazing. So
you can preserve them.
I can print you to them.
And they've got my name on too.
But they've got
so
they're
never going to lose those.
Yeah. But I mean, for any student getting into the craft or any enthusiast that really wants to get into upholstery, I recommend they get a pair of these. Both
Workmasters and a pair of glides.
Both Workmasters and a pair of glides. That's a good start. That's a really good start.
The good thing about both of them is that Xylene coating, because like Teflon, it's non-stick. So when you're using your adhesives, your glues, things like that, it stops them getting gummed up and stuck together.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah.
Because
God, that is a massive.
I'm sure your chrome plate ones won't do that for you.
I use
Bloody glue.
I get my glue out. I've got a glue gun connected to a canister, and sometimes it gets everywhere. If I get glue, and actually when I'm gluing together poly, 6 ounce or 4 ounce poly, and then I'm using my glides, and I get glue on the glides, and then I get white spirit.
Yes.
And then clean the guides with the white. Is that okay? But if
That's okay.
Will that take this off? Over time?
Only if you're doing it a lot. If you're really scrubbing it with them. But they are heavy duty. It should stay for quite some time before that starts becoming a problem. Yeah. I'd just say, just on your cutting edge, once you've given them that good clean, just pop just a tiny bit of oil on them, just to make sure. Any machine oil or WD-40, things like that, just your common oils. There's
lots of different oils. I use sewing machine oils.
Even that would be fine because that's classed as a machine oil. So just something to run across that cutting edge, just because you've stripped it bare of everything. So if you pop that back on, it'll keep them keep them in good condition and lasting for as long as possible. It's a good way of caring for your scissors.
Now, I have a question. Keeping them sharp.
Keeping them sharp?
Oh, yeah. Don't you offer a
scissor
sharpening service?
Is it to every sale that you make, you allow customers to come back to you and have their scissors sharp?
Yes. So for all the purchases that come through us recently, historically, whatever, we do give that opportunity to send them back to us to have them sharpened by us, which I think is really nice because it means we've got the jigs, we've got the craftsmanship behind it to make sure that edge is set perfectly. So when you get them back, they'll be as good as new.
This is the thing, see?
Did you want to tell our listeners what we accidentally did?
What did we do?
We accidentally forgot our scissors to bring up
to get them sharpened.
Even though Jade reminded us. I was the first person to forget them.
And then last night, and then
studio, and then Ray forgot his as well.
I was working in staining. That's one of my things of a strange colour. But then I got home and
I know.
Yeah, it's okay. You can send them through the post. That's okay. Just make sure you wrap them up nice and tight.
And but having seen the machinery downstairs, seeing all the tools and all the equipment, not only is it nice to get it, it makes sense. They're so precision engineered. You wouldn't just slap any old kind of scissor sharpener. Because you can get those sometimes. You can get scissor sharpeners that you can just
that you just pull over them.
And especially if you've got
the little hand machines.
There's some people buy those little machines, gadgets you buy on Amazon, and you can just pull it over the blade. No. When you've got such a fine serrated edge like this. Yeah,
serration is a difficult one because you need that serrating wheel. It's not going to sharpen it if you pull something over it. It's going to blunt it if anything. It's going to take that serration away.
No. And also, it's like if you could take, if you had a really nice pair of shoes. Yeah. I'm not talking about your bog standard trainers. A nice pair of shoes that you wear all the time, and you need to get the soles repaired, for instance. You take them to a proper shoemaker.
Cobbler.
Yeah, cobbler.
Yeah, well, shoemaker, cobbler. You just wouldn't just take them to any old, chop shop, whatever, for them to stick on, fake rubber soles and whatever. The same applies to, shears and shoes. Yeah. You'd want to have them precision crafted and engineered so that they're sharpened by the people who make them rather than just any old.
So where is next for Whiteley's? I know that you've just enlisted a new director.
Yes.
So what is the future of Whiteley's?
So obviously the main thing we want to continue doing is making scissors, manufacturing scissors to the highest quality standards possible. And to do that, obviously there's a lot of investment that we can put into the business, a lot of growth that we can do. We want to obviously carry on manufacturing new types of scissors once the need for them comes around. Exos were our most recent one. So obviously it's a style. It's modelled on a historical shear. Right. So they're very similar in the sense that it's got that big bolt, but it's new age technology. So we want to continue to do things like that, continue to bring new things to the table.
What about markets? It would seem like in the UK, if there are only two major scissor crafts people left, you've both got 50% each of the
I
UK
sense,
market.
Yeah. In a sense,
there's just two of you.
Many people don't just have one pair of scissors,
or even one market.
Or even one market. So it's a shared market. We don't see it as a competition, like a battle to who can be the last remaining ones. Like we should all grow together. We
cut each other
no.
So, I can be really cheesy.
Scissor fighting,
it's my hobby of being cheesy. Do you know what I mean?
But we
what about the US market and other markets around the world?
We'd love to be even more global than we are now. So we're already shipping worldwide. Our website is a worldwide website, so we get orders from all over the globe. But our biggest market is still the UK, seconded by the US, but obviously in comparison to size.
Not seconded by Europe?
No. Europe is our lowest market of all, which is, it's surprising, but it's...
I don't want to get...
It gets a little bit political when we talk about Brexit.
I don't want to get political, but I'm curious about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like, has that always been the case prior to us leaving the UK, leaving the European Union, or is it just since... since we're the UK
since we've been an online web store, we'd already left. So there's not much evidence to know whether we'd have done better before. But we do better in countries where there's not VAT and tax and customs fees to pay when you're bringing in goods. So we do better in the US, Australia, places like that with larger tolerances.
We're talking about steel as well, aren't we? Primarily the production of and the manufacturing of and the processing of
Which
steel.
Sheffield's very important
Sheffield steel.
too. Yeah.
Wow. So can you say anything about the manufacturing of steel in the UK and how that would affect your business as shears makers?
Obviously, the fact that the market as a whole for manufacturing steel in England, in Sheffield, has got smaller and smaller and smaller, puts it in higher demand, puts the price up. So obviously, all of these things have knock-on effects on companies like us, because once things start getting too expensive, we then have to put our prices up, or it becomes completely unobtainable. So obviously, it's really important to us to stick with other companies within Sheffield, within England, to hold it down together so that we can all stay put. We don't want to go anywhere, but it's a joint effort.
Or compete with German manufacturers or Japanese or even Americans.
Yeah.
I like Sheffield still. I love what these
Sheffield manufacturing is absolutely amazing, and we've got so much heritage, so much history in it. So many revolutionary things that have occurred. Discovery of stainless steel, even. So it's great things that we want to keep growing on. We want to keep adding to that history book, not just suddenly stop.
Spreading that even wider, AMUSF students, if you're out there, if you're like totally into the craft, you should be using a pair of like Whiteley's and Sons She is. It's got to be. Haven't you?
Yeah. Get these work masters.
Get the work. Look, get the work masters. I'm not trying to do.
Don't wait 18 years like me.
And just get a
They're
pair
a great
of these.
tool.
They're amazing for the craft. They're amazing. They will help your toolbox. You'll protect them like kids and
Yes, look after them, keep them dry.
Ray, not everyone's like you with their tools.
No, this has been a history lesson par excellence, and thank you, Jade.
You're very welcome.
Right. You've been listening to Vicky and Ray on this podcast, and we've been listening to the lovely Jade from Whiteley and Sons. We hope you've enjoyed this first foray into our visual part of our podcast. Please like and subscribe, and thank you for watching.
Sit on this.